First is the first 4G phone. First is live video chat on the go. So you can be face-to-face, even when you can't be. Whether you're on 4G, 3G, and of course, Wi-Fi. First lets you stream live video to the web in 3, 2, 1. What will you do first with Evo, the first 4G phone? Only from Sprint, the Now Network.
And welcome back to Swamp Talk. We're covering the Florida Gator football program from the cheap seats. I'm your host, Will Bradley, and we have Joel Smith with you all college football season long. We can't wait to get started. We're talking recruiting in this first episode of the new season. So, Joel, we talked about the January enrollees. Who do we have stepping on campus for the first time this summer that we need to talk about?
Well, it's definitely good that we're talking about this because I think this time of year you start to look forward to the next class and people forget all these talented freshmen that are coming in all of a sudden. So a couple you definitely have to highlight would be Jacoby Brissett. I think people are so enamored with Driscoll that they forget that you also have another top 100 quarterback on the roster coming in, and a kid who did not shy away from competition. His family wanted him to go somewhere else. They wanted him to go to Miami. They didn't want him to compete with Driscoll at Florida, but he decided, you know what, I'm going to do my best to win that job, and that's where I want to be. So hats off to this kid for becoming a Gator, and he's definitely a big-time talent. So he definitely have to talk about him and point him out. Another one that kind of snuck in there is Marcus Roberson, a cornerback from St. Thomas Aquinas. Anytime you can pull a kid out of St. Thomas Aquinas, you have to be happy. I mean, you can look back to Marcus Gilbert and Major Wright as two recent Gators from there. But such a strong program, and this kid was the number 2 rated cornerback in the nation and one of the top 50 players by most recruiting services. So this is a kid that many thought was probably going to end up being a Gator, and when he did, I mean, he tends to be someone people may have forgotten about, but he's a tall, fast, talented cornerback that may have an impact right away.
Excellent. Yeah, you know, when you're speaking about Brissett, people don't talk about that. The fact that he did not shy away from the fact that Jeff Driscoll, you know, pretty much in the minds of Gator Nation, you know, he's pretty much, you know, already been christened the next big thing here at Florida. He saw that in spite of it all, still decided to come here, and I agree with you. That has to say something about this kid in terms of, you know, what he can deliver. Anybody that has, excuse my expression, those kind of brass balls you definitely want on your roster. What about our offensive line or defensive line? How much help are we getting with these new guys coming on in the summer?
Well, the offensive line, I think we already talked about Tommy Jordan a little bit. The other one coming in is Trip Thurman, and I think you just got to look at the size with these guys. I mean, Thurman's a relatively well-ranked recruit out of Delaware, but he's also a big kid, 6'6", 302, and that's probably more realistically his weight after his junior year. When you look at those measurements on all the recruiting sites, always keep in mind that these are typically what the guys measured in at when they were a junior, not even a senior. So you think of a guy that's 6'6", 302, well, by the time he gets to fall of his freshman season, you know they've got him bigger. I mean, we're in the days that offensive tackles are 6'6", 350, and even more than that. So these are two guys who can fill out and be big, tall, just grinders. And they definitely provide depth just on their size right away. I think you've also got to be proud of the fact that the offensive line schemes are probably going to be simpler going forward. That was something that plagued the team last year. It wasn't necessarily always a lack of talent or depth. It was that you had people pulling and making runs and doing all these things that these kids just need to settle in and block. So I think that's what you saw a lot last year was Brantley was having barely any time to throw because a true freshman guard was having to pull on every other play in different directions. It was just too complicated. So I think you're going to see an easier line that's going to allow these kids to excel. When we switch over to the defensive side of the ball, we have 2 kids coming in, Clay Burton and Kevin Westbrook, and you have to be excited about Clay Burton because he's Trey's little brother. And if there's ever been a football player, it doesn't matter what position these kids end up at. They're just football players, and they're team players, and they love everything about Florida, and they're good recruiters, and they're just exciting people to watch. So I'm very excited to see what Clay can do once he gets into the program and actually becomes a player on Saturdays.
Yeah, you know, like you said, just that athlete. We hope the genes run through the family, obviously. but he's just one of those tough guys. Another guy who was committed to Notre Dame and switched, at the last minute, decided to come to Florida. Again, I love the fact that Muschamp is getting some of these guys who seem to be a little more cerebral. I think that's a must in terms of what he's trying to accomplish on the field, on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball. And ultimately, I think those types of players, you're going to see less off-the-field issues with these guys. These guys are looking forward to things other than just football. I think it's very important. Now, I know that the Gators picked up quite a bit of support in the secondary, but it's all young. And we've lost maybe our best safety. What do we have to look forward to? Should we expect to see some of the new guys getting some minutes early on in the season?
Well, I think if anything, we've realized over the last couple of years, even back to 2007 when Joe Hayden first started, and really our struggles that year were because of a young secondary, is depth is so important. And I mean, run down the list. You got Gorman, Johnson, Purifoy, Robertson, Saunders, Showers. That's 6 defensive backs just in this last class alone. But that's good. The Gators need that kind of depth because you never know where it'll come from. You look at a guy like Reggie Nelson, who was a 3-star recruit, who did a community college route, who came in and played decent enough in a backup role, and then all of a sudden blew up. So you never know which one of these kids 2 years from now could be an All-American. And just to get the depth is great because these kids want to play together. They want to compete. I mean, there are a variety of sizes, and Muschamp likes his cornerbacks big. And a lot of these kids, I mean, you have 3 of them that are 6 feet or taller alone. But just the speed he's bringing in and the depth he's bringing in is going to be great because you never know with cornerbacks and you never know when injuries might hit. We've missed a lot of time to see what Moses Jenkins and Jeremy Brown could really do because they've been hurt so much. And that's no fault of their own, but we've needed that depth because of that. And now you lose a guy like Ahmad Black, who was just a baller for 4 straight years.
The anchor, the basic anchor of I think he was the anchor of the entire team, not even just the defense. But I think he was the anchor of everything last season. Sorry, go ahead, Joel.
3 or 4 years. Yeah, no, you're right. 3 or 4 years ago, who possibly would have thought in 2010 Ahmad Black would be the most valuable player on the team? And he was. And if there's a Gator fan out there that doesn't love him, then there's something wrong with that Gator fan. But that's another example of he was kind of a forgotten guy from that Lakeland class that produced the Pounceys, Chris Rainey, a couple other big names like John Brown, who didn't end up making an impact, but were higher ranked. And he kind of got forgotten about. Well, look at the impact he had his last 3 seasons, including that national championship year. So any of these guys could be studs. And just the depth they're creating is important, but it's also great and a lot of speed. I mean, some of these guys like Purifoy can just flat out run.
Well, there it is. You're hearing it from Joel Smith, the Bull Gator Alligator Army, part of the SB Nation blog network here on Swamp Talk. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, try and pay some bills. When we come back, Joel's going to talk with us about some of the verbal commits that we've got, I guess we call it committed, for 2012. And then after that, we're going to go through a UFR sports tradition, go through our balls and strikes, and let Joel take his stance in the batter's box, and we'll see what he's got on game day. So we'll be right back. You can find us at UFRsports.com, UFR Sports on Twitter, twitter.com/UFR Sports. I feel like I've said it 1,000 times, so I'm sure you know it, and we'll be right back.